What's your name, sis?
Tiffany.
Nice to meet you, Tiff.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you. How old are you?
I'm 34. I'll be 35 on 9/11. I was born in Chicago. My mom, okay, so like I said, I was born in 90. So from 90 to 94, my mom had me living with her. Well, she was pregnant with my sister. And then she took us she moved to Puerto Rico. She had my sister over there. And then from 94 to November of 96, that's how long we stood over there in Puerto Rico. And from 96 to 2011, I lived in Reading. So that's where I mainly was raised at. In the beginning, when we moved out there, first, um, she was going back and forth between jobs. I went to 5 different elementary schools in a matter, I think, of 2 years or almost 2 years. And during that period of time, though, she had met my brother's dad, and he molested me actually from when I was 6 all the way to 12. It was really rough. I got scars on my body, my face, this one here. He did that. Um, he started then touching my sister when I was 9. She was 5. And of course, I kept a real close eye because he would try to penetrate, her. Like, he never penetrated neither one of us, but he did try. Um, but he never wanted me in the same room. There's only one time that he had us in the same room, and that's him coming in drunk from his job. And he had us in my mom's room, actually. It's crazy, But it was hell. And I still go through a lot of me and my mother's relationship is pretty, it's on the rocks and has been on the rocks ever since. Like, she, it's complicated with her, my mother, at first. So the day before, basically, I had stood up to my brother's dad, and basically, I told him I didn't want him touching anymore. That was like the second time I had told him that. The first time, of course, he wasn't too happy either one of the times. But the first time, he after I told him that, everybody went to the laundromat and shit, And the thing is, I would normally go. This was the first time that I told my mother. I said that I was gonna stay home, and well, he took that as an opportunity when he comes back while everybody was still at the laundromat, and he sees me sitting down, and he just starts to force, his fingers in between my legs, and he was like, "You're mine." It's like, I don't care what you say. Well, he said it in Spanish. He was Mexican, but so that was the first time. But the second time, that was it for me. And like I said, he really wasn't too happy about it. It was dinner. It's as stupid as it may seem, but now my mother, she was very strict when it came to us eating our meals. She wouldn't give us anything to drink until after we ate our meals. So she wasn't there. She was at work, and so we're all sitting. It was me, my sister, and my brother. And it's funny, like, he ends up giving them their drinks. They didn't even finish their food yet. Now, I'm the only one who finished my meal. So, and I asked him, I said, "Can I get some juice?" He says no to me. And I asked him again. And he says no to me again. So I walk away angry as hell. And he was like, "Go take a shower," or whatever. And I go upstairs, I grab my towel, and I come downstairs, and I was like, "That's why you got kicked out of school when you were in the 6th grade." And he got real mad about it. He came out the kitchen. He just started fucking me up. We had a real big fight. I went towards the phone, and he just yanked it out the wall. And after that, I basically told him, I said, "You know what?" I said, "I'm not scared of you anymore." I said, when mommy gets home, I'm going to tell her the truth. And so I stood there in the living room and I sat down and waited until she came home. And when she comes home and she opens the door and she sees, like, like I got tears running down my eyes and I got my arms crossed and he's standing like next to me and she's like, what's going on? And I told her, I said, Ma, I was like, remember all those times that I had bruises on my body or whatever? Like, because there was many times, my mother, she ended up questioning me about marks I had on my body, and I always came up with an excuse, you know. And, but she kind of knew better than that. Like, but in a way, she believed me also because my excuses were pretty good. So, but anyway, so I told her, and then he ends up saying, after I get done saying that, he says, your daughter, she tried to call the police or whatever and have them come over here. And my mom, instead, she takes a belt and she ends up hit me right across my leg. Like, the metal part of the belt was the part that hit my leg, really. And I had a slash and just start bleeding, like, very lightly. It wasn't real deep, but it was, basically, just the top, like the skin. But I still started bleeding and shit, regardless of the fact. She sends me upstairs. And a little bit afterwards, I mean, I was, of course, real upset about it. But then I heard her arguing with him and saying, she's like, are you crazy? I could get my kids taken away from me, this, that, and the third. So she did get on to him about it and shit. And, but she knew there was a little bit more to what things seemed, and I guess she thought about it that whole night. And it's crazy, like, around now, I didn't put my alarm. I was supposed to go to school the next day. I didn't put my alarm clock on purposely. I was like, fuck that shit. And she comes up like around 3 o'clock in the morning, and my mother's a big woman, and she would hardly ever come upstairs to our room. The only time she would come upstairs to our room is if, to check to see if our room was clean. And that's it. Other than that, she wouldn't come upstairs. And so she came upstairs and she comes up to me. I pretend like I was still asleep. She comes up to me. She gives me a kiss on my forehead, and she's crying. And she left the room. I start crying too, like, And so when I get up, it's like around probably like 9:30 in the morning. I'm way late for school and shit. I was supposed to leave. Anyways, she was sitting down on the living room chair, and she's like, come downstairs. I need to talk to you. No. Well, hold on. Before she said that, she was like, why do you put your alarm clock on? And I said, I forgot. Then she told me, she said, come into the kitchen with me. So I went into the kitchen with her. And we sit down, and she takes out these pills, and she just sets them down on the table. She's like, you know what these pills are? She's like, they're for my heart. She says, every single time you and him are getting into a fight, you guys stress me out. She was like, she was saying that there's something going on, and I want to know what it is. And I told her, I said I was scared of telling her because he threatened to kill me if I was ever say anything. So, but I told her repeatedly, I said I want to tell her, and then finally I decided to tell her. And I said that he had been touching me, for a pretty long time. She just starts breaking down, and I told her, I said that he had been doing it to Janice too, my sister. And she, she's just breaking down, and then afterwards she's telling me, she's like, go get Janice. And I went upstairs and I told my sister, I said, Janice, I said, I just got done telling mommy about everything. She was like, what? Like, 'cause she was scared too. He threatened her. Well, he ain't threatened to kill her. I mean, he threatened to whoop her ass and shit, you know what I mean? Like, to beat it down. But being the fact, I guess I was the oldest, is the reason why he ended up telling me, yeah, that he would, kill me or whatever. So then I told my sister, I said to go ahead and tell my mom. And my mom asked her, was it true? And she said, yeah. My sister starts crying. So we're just... So we're just all crying in the kitchen, and afterwards she was like, look, no, she said, go upstairs to your room. And she basically goes to talk. And I was like, Ma, don't say anything. Like, like I'm petrified and shit. And so she went into the room, and I ended up getting down on the floor, and I just like poked my head through the banister and shit. Still being nosy, trying to see what was going on. And she wakes him up, and so she wakes him up, and she mentions the whole thing. And this man, as long as I had known him all that time, that he basically, I mean, as crazy as it may seem, he wasn't my father, but at the same time, although he was doing what he was doing, he was the father figure in my life at the same time, which is kind of crazy. But I've never seen him shed a tear, not once. And not just that, but he wasn't one to either smile in pictures. Like, if you've seen pictures of him, the only time he smiled was when he was drunk. But it was that demonic smile. Like, when the very first time he actually did touch me, it was
It's
a lot going on right now,
right? It's like a whole convoy. I don't know what's going on.
Somebody must have got shot, something.
Damn.
Yeah, so the first time it was crazy is that when he actually did touch me, we were in a place, I guess, where he worked at. Now, I think it was it goes to trade now. Yeah.
It's busy today,
Yeah,
for sure.
right.
The story is deep. That's why a lot going on.
Yeah. So anyway, so like the first time he actually ended up touching me. Yeah, the first time he ended up touching me, crazy part. So we were in a place, I think it was like a plantation or whatever, and there was a whole bunch of other Mexicans around, like it's known to be like places like that, they usually get Mexicans, you know what I mean, to work because they do it for cheap or whatever. But yeah, so anyways, there was like these like whole bunch of these trailers or whatever, and it was me, my sister, my brother wasn't born yet, but it was me, my sister, my mom, my godmother. She was talking to somebody at that time. I think that was his cousin, and him. And I remember I was standing in front of him. My sister was standing in front of my mom, and I remember my godmother comes over to talk to my mom, and while they're talking, he slides his hand down my shirt. Literally, right there. Like, like, it was insane. But the thing is, like, you gotta think, I'm 6 years old. I ain't got nothing. There's nothing, you know what I mean? I can remember everything that I was wearing. My mom used to dress me and my sister exactly the same. But, yeah, like, he slides his hand down my shirt. When I look up, like I said, it was this demonic smile. Like, it's the only thing I can compare it to. Like, you know what I mean? Like I said, because he wasn't one to smile in the first place, unless he was drunk. But yeah, so it was crazy. Like, he ended up going through something like after that. Like, I think it was between either a couple months or like a year in that time. He had got stabbed up, like real bad. Like, it was like from here all the way down, like straight down and like across. There was actually a newspaper article and everything. Like, he had got carried by helicopter and everything. Like, he was basically like dead. You know what I mean? And it was in that time while he was healing while my mother wasn't around when it really started, the whole thing. But yeah, like, so throughout the time though, like, for real, for me to be a kid, because the thing is, like, being the fact I was the oldest, I was hit with a lot of heavy responsibility, and so anything that I wanted to do to be a kid, to play a video game, to go outside and play, I literally had to let him touch me. It was like, as crazy as it may seem, but it didn't like come to me like until like a few years ago that it didn't register to me that I was basically prostituting myself just so I can be a kid. It's insane, but you know. So I still have a lot of aftermath dealing with my mother, like having to do that situation, because even after, oh yeah, so when she ended up saying something to him, he ended up getting on his knees and saying that I was lying. And he was crying, like really, got tears running down his eyes. She's lying, she's making it up, da 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 da. And here my mother calls me afterwards, and she had the nerve to actually ask me. She said, "Tiffany, are you sure?" I'm like, "Ma," like, I just start crying. I'm like, "Don't believe anything that he's saying. Like, he's lying to you." Like, so she kicks him out. She walks him out, but he was like behind her, and he ends up pointing up to me. He goes like this, like, and I told her about that. So afterwards, I had to start taking the bus to school. Even more embarrassing, right after the fact, my mother worked at a daycare center, and I was, like I said, I was 12, 13, 12, going on 13, and I'm taking the daycare bus to school, to middle school, mind you. So it was pretty embarrassing for me. It was a lot of embarrassing things that I had to deal with, growing up in my school years. So yeah, but and in between that time, no, when I hit 14, we were still living in the same neighborhood. It was just a constant reminder too. That's the one thing I hated. Like, I went through all that shit in the same neighborhood, and my mother just kept moving down, either right down the block, either right down the block or around the corner. It was very stressful.